take a moment and grab your bulletin with me, if you will. I want you to open it up to the inside. I want you to take a peek at just how mission-minded we are as a church. Many of you don't know this, some of you don't know it, that every year our church gives 10% of our budget offering to the cooperative program. That's to go to international missions, and every dime of that goes to international missions in the cooperative program. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. $25,000 plus that you give each year to go to international missions. We also have North American missions that come about once a year, and that North American mission offering is Annie Armstrong. You'll see that on the right side, firmly planted. That's our North American mission emphasis, and our goal this year is $2,000. To date, we've given almost $500 of that goal. We're going to continue to make you aware of that, and we'll continue to take this even after Easter, even though it's an Easter offering, and that's a North American mission offering. We also have a state mission offering called Edna McMillan. So we are a mission-minded church. We are deeply embedded in Southern Baptist roots, and we know that giving helps share the gospel. Jesus Christ rode into into Jerusalem, not Bethlehem, into Jerusalem, Palm Sunday, as we mentioned earlier, and his whole goal was not to ride in triumphantly as that conquering person on a white horse, but to ride in on the back of a donkey, if you will, as a humble servant, to come and give his life for us so that we might share him with the world. So I think there's times as a church and as a community we must understand that even though we give to missions global, we give to missions in North America, we even give to missions in our state, that part of being missionaries is not just our spring break project, Love in Action, which is a Mission Warner type event, but it's also to recognize the needs of missionaries everywhere in ways that we can invest in what they're doing. Today is such a day. Megan Young is going to come and share with you about student mobilization. And while you're looking at your bulletin, I want you to look at the thought of the week over on the left. This is a strategy statement from Student Mobilization taken right off their website. Helping men and women embrace their faith and grow as spiritual leaders for future generations. Wouldn't that be a great strategy for every church? Wouldn't that be a great strategy for, well, two of you said it. Wouldn't that be a great strategy for every church? Yeah. Well, this is what this organization is doing on college campuses, okay? And they're branching out and they're stretching out, and Megan will share that with you. I want you to also look at your lower right where there's just a little snippet, a little bulletin ad for them, what they're doing and how you might donate to what they're doing through Warner FBC or even through stumo.org/donate. And when you go to that site, if you want to donate, there is a drop-down menu that you can say, here's where I want that money to go. They give you lots of choices. One of those choices is Megan Young. Another choice would be, I want you to just put that money wherever. Why are we making you aware of this? Seems like we're always asking for money for one thing or another. We're making you aware of it because even sitting here in the town of Warner, you can make an impact on campuses across the world. We support BCM here at Connors, and we'll continue to support them. But what if you had an impact at the University of Colorado and never thought in the world you'd make an impact even in the state of Colorado? Megan's going to come share with you some wonderful things about what she's doing and how she's committed her life to Jesus Christ. We've known Megan since she was a baby. We met her the day she was born. Her mom and dad are good friends of ours. I went to school with her dad, graduated together with him, and they're wonderful people. She's a wonderful young lady, and I want you to meet Megan Young from Student Mobilization. Megan?
Hello, everyone. Is this on? Is it good? Okay. Never done this before, so might be a rookie. But yeah, no, I've known the Dunns my whole life and probably have a lot of embarrassing pictures of myself as a baby with me and Tryon probably were the same age. But I won't show those to you all. But so here's myself. I want to give you guys a background on my life, really. I'm from Fort Gibson, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with that, not too far from here. And just to give a little perspective, Fort Gibson's about 3,000 people, but in the 1 by 8 rectangle mile, there's 11 churches. So much like, southern Oklahoma, anywhere in the South, really, it's just very heavily saturated with religion and churches, and something that we really value here. And I grew up in a family that went to church every Sunday, and I grew up really knowing that that's something everybody did. That's something that everybody knew who Jesus was. Everybody was a Christian. And obviously, if you're older than a 7-year-old, then you probably know that's not true. If you look at the Bible, you know that's not true. And so, but I grew up understanding that Jesus had died for my sins, and therefore I was going to heaven. I didn't understand that sin was separating me from God if I didn't make a choice to follow him. So I grew up most of my life believing, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. And I go to church, and that's just what you do when you're a Christian. And so my life changed quite a bit whenever I was 7 years old, and I moved to Boston, Massachusetts. I don't know if you guys have ever been up north, but it's definitely not very Christian saturated. So for the first time in my life, I met a person who said, oh, God's not real. Jesus was just a person. He's just a teacher. And I met lots of people of different religions, and because of that, I was really shocked. I was, put into this whirlwind that, wait, not everybody follows Jesus. I was honestly very alarmed by it, and so the rest of my life grew up really confused, but still claimed this Christian faith. But as I grew up and as I had opportunities to come back home and be involved in Christian camps and different things like that, I started to really be a little unsettled, like, what do I believe and those kinds of things. So needless to say, I started to compensate for those things by really getting in my insecurities, that is. I started to compensate by getting involved heavily in the church. I said, if I go on mission trips, if I'm involved in the youth group, if I become Teens for Christ president at Fort Gibson High School, then maybe I'm really a Christian. Maybe I'm really that person that when I get to heaven, God will say, well, at least you tried. And so went through this phase, and the entire time was really honestly scared. So going to college was a really big step for me. I was really excited, and I've always had a very independent family, moving around a lot of places, always coming back to Fort Gibson for some reason. Very thankful for that. But going to college was big for me because it was going to be the first time that I was going to be held accountable for my faith on my own. And so, being the college student, I'd heard a lot of things about parties and drugs and alcohol and all those kinds of things. And honestly, as the sheltered Christian girl, I freaked out. I got there and I was just, stiff-arm every single person almost, because I was so scared of, well, if I get in these things, then I'm not really a Christian. Again, basing everything off of my works. And so it wasn't until, you can go to the next slide. It wasn't until I met this woman, you can't see the name super well, but it says Molly Soderstrom. Molly was actually the very first person I met at the University of Tulsa, where I ended up deciding to go my senior year of high school. So my freshman year, I'm there for move-in day, panicky, as you can expect, that's what I've told you. But Molly was the first person I met. She came in, she was wearing a yellow dress and a white cardigan. I still remember because it was that shining moment. And she got my number, got my name, and told me that she was working on campus and that she'd love to hang out with me. And me, being a super whatever girl, I was just so excited. I've already made a friend, oh my gosh. And so I really stuck to Molly from there on out. I would call her all the time and things like that. Looking back, she's like, this is so weird. What girl, the first day that I meet you, starts becoming my best friend as a college minister? So looking back, Molly started spending a lot of time with me, and something she did one of the first times I met her was she shared the gospel with me. She went through Romans 6:23 that says, for the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. And those are a lot of things that I've heard before and things that I've understood, that the free gift of life is eternal life through Jesus. But the deal, I didn't really understand that sin separated me from God, and so if I didn't trust in Jesus as my Lord, then I was still separated from him and I couldn't have that eternal life. So because of that, Molly started sharing these things with me, and I really wanted Molly to like me. So I told her, yes, I get these things. I've been a Christian my whole life. Oh, I'm good. And so that, I thought, telling her would make her like me. Of course, looking back now, Molly, all she wanted me to do was say, yes, I need help. Yes, I need you to help me understand these things. And so I went on the rest of that year continuing to build a friendship with Molly. She spends lots of time with me in the Word, teaching me how to pray, giving me a big perspective on my life. And the whole time I was starting to say, man, my life looks really different than Molly Soderstrom's. I don't have peace like she does. I don't have joy like she does. I don't have a purpose in my life like she does. And so Molly continued to stick with me. And at the end of my freshman year, I was given the opportunity, you can go ahead and click the next slide, to go to this program called Kaleo. Kaleo is a Greek word. It's for the call. And so Kaleo is a 9-week discipleship and evangelism project that Student Mobilization puts on during the summers for all college students that want to come. And so Molly gave me this opportunity. She said, Megan, I want you to go to Kaleo. I want you to give up your summer. I don't want you to do an internship. I want you to come to Kaleo, spend your summer with me, and I want to train you in how to be a disciple of Christ. And honestly, I'm sitting there like shaking, and I'm just like, oh, this is a big step for me, because in all honesty, a lot of girls in my sorority house, I ended up joining a sorority, a lot of girls in my sorority house said, don't go be a Christian girl. Don't go be that girl. Don't come back and be different. And so because I was wanting friends, I was scared. These were my new friends that year. I was like, Molly, I don't know if I can do that. I don't think I can go, because then I'm going to be the Christian girl. And so Molly looked at me and said, Megan, do you know what Galatians 1:10 says? I said, no, I don't know the Bible. And I said, and she told me, she said, Galatians 1:10 says that if you are a servant of Christ, that you will not want to please man, but that you will want to please God. And I'm going to be honest with you, I started just bawling right then and there, and realized that my big hang up was that I wanted to have my own life. I wanted to have my own plan. I wanted God's approval of my plan. But I really wanted to have my friends and have my way and be able to just get to heaven by little nuggets of good works. But the reality is that the only plan is God's plan. And so I had to, at that point, give my life to Christ and say, okay, I'm all in for you. I'm not just partially in, but I'm all in for you. And so at that point, I was no longer that lukewarm Christian, and I actually had an eternal relationship with God. So I ended up going to Kaleo, as you can assume. And that was the summer that my life changed. As you can assume, I got a really good tan. I was in Florida. So that was an awesome thing. But more than that, I spent 40 hours a week in a job getting to know people in Florida. I made money that summer, got to have a job, those kinds of things. But in the evening times, I would be with Molly and other girls in my sorority that came, and other sorority girls and dorm girls and guys from University of Tulsa, and got to bond with them and have a community of believers as college students where we were learning how to read the Bible in the Greek and the Hebrew, how to put it in context. Okay, so Paul says, guard the good deposit. What does that mean for my life? I have no idea what the good deposit is. What is that? So Molly taught me how to study these things and say, okay, this was written thousands of years ago. What does that mean for Megan Young today in 2010? Okay, so my life changed because I learned how to apply God's word. I did that, and then I started praying for things, started praying for my life, started praying for the girls in my sorority, started praying for my parents, started praying for people back in Fort Gibson, all these things. And my entire world was just, I took the blinders off. I finally was seeing, man, it's not just about me, I guess. And I got a heart for the lost. I got a heart for those people who are separated from God just like me, people who had a really good camouflage, who could really walk the walk and talk the talk. I'm sure the Duns would say, oh yeah, Megan grew up. She was totally a Christian. Anybody would have said that. But I had a lot of deep-rooted sin that was hidden from people. And so you can move the next slide. So after Kaleo, I just was honestly on fire to think, okay, I've been taught how to lead a Bible study. I've been taught how to study God's word. I've been taught that the last thing Jesus said was, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. If that's the last thing he said, that's probably pretty important. And so I'm thinking, okay, if I want my life to count, I need to leave an impact in my sorority. This is my sorority. My sorority's name was Chi Omega. Our symbol is the owls. There's lots of those in my house right now, lots of little owl figurines. there was about 50 girls in my house at pretty much any given year. And of those 50 girls, whenever I was a sophomore, about 4 of those 50 claimed to be Christian. A lot of them grew up in church and things like that, but they were kind of like, I'd rather go party. I'd rather go do these things. And so none of those girls really would have been willing to come to a church. They wouldn't have stepped foot in a church. However, they were my friends, and I lived in the same house as them right down the hall. And so because I had been given the good deposit of my salvation in the gospel, I was able to guard that and take it to them. And so because they wouldn't step foot in a church, I was able to take the gospel to these girls in my sorority house, and got to go through lots of different things. I mean, rejection, name calling, but the best things that happened were people that came to Christ. If you can show the next slide. So these are some girls in my sorority that are very near and dear to my heart. I got to share with a lot of different girls in my sorority, but these are the ones that ended up making the decision to follow him. And so these top 5 girls right beneath my picture are girls that I led to Christ from my sophomore to senior year, and then beneath that are girls that they led to Christ, and beneath that are girls that they led to Christ. And so whenever Jesus says, therefore, go and make disciples, the big call there, if you look at the grammar, it's not go, or tell, it's make. It's make. And so because we are called to make disciples, that's the command, is to make disciples, then our big call is to be disciple makers. Therefore, it's to make disciples who are making disciples, who are making disciples. And so this was my big call for me. I'm like, man, if I'm going to be having a life that's worth anything, I need to see people come to Christ, but not just come to Christ, but learn how to lead others to Christ, and learn how to follow them up, and how to train them, and how to let them be men and women, and these people who are going to change their lives, going to change their marriages, going to change their children's lives, going to change their grandchildren's lives for the rest of eternity. I don't want to leave Chi Omega with blood on my hands thinking, man, I really could have done a lot more. But honestly, none of this could have happened had it not been for Molly Soderstrom. That first day of school, coming up, meeting me, shaking my hand, and getting my number. I wouldn't have known the true gospel. I wouldn't have ended up staying in Cayo. I wouldn't have gone to Kaleo, gotten the training that I needed to come back and have the confidence to share the gospel with these girls who had zero interest. So I'm very thankful for Molly Soderstrom. So this is what my life looked like at the end of my senior year. You can go to the next slide. At the end of my senior year, Molly and her husband Jason sat me down and said, Megan, we've seen you grow a lot in your faith and in ministry, and what do you want to do after you graduate? I said, well, I have an art degree, which my dad's like, really? You went to college for an art degree? Awesome. So basically I got to pay thousands of dollars to maintain my hobby. But I told them, I said, something I've learned from you all is my life doesn't matter if I have not impacted things that will actually be eternal. And those things are God, God's word, and people. So anything else I can't take with me. Anything else really doesn't matter. And so I guess whatever it is I'm doing, I'd really like to just keep making disciples. And they said, Megan, you can do that in the workforce. You can do that as an artist. You can do that as a teacher. You can do that as a hippie. I don't know, probably what I was headed towards. But in reality, you do have this opportunity with us to make that your full-time job. For 70 hours a week, you can be on the college campus, meeting girls, building relationships, sharing the gospel, training them, and discipling them. I was like, for real? And they're like, yes, we would love for you to come on staff with us here at the University of Tulsa, where I've been, and make the decision to raise your support so that you can be here on staff full-time with us. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Yes, well, kind of did the whole waterworks kind of a thing. And so that was my senior year. And so you saw how the end of that looked. So I came on staff, and so here I am. So God was faithful, and he brought a host of people on my support team that decided, hey, I believe in you in this mission. I want to send you out to the University of Tulsa. And so that was this past summer. And so this year, I've been able to come back to TU and start sharing the gospel with new girls. There's 4 parts of my job. The first one, it's hard to see, but the upper left-hand corner, there's 4 girls there. That word says evangelizing. So the very first thing of my job is like Molly did. Going to dorms, going to sororities, going to the CAF, meeting girls, building relationships with them, and starting a relationship where I can follow up with them, get their number, and say, hey, I'd love to hang out with you sometime, and really share how valuing God changed my life. And so that's just the first part of my job. And within that spectrum, I got to share the gospel this year with about 26 girls, and of those 26, these 4 came to Christ. I want to tell you a story about one of the girls. She's the redhead there, the third one to the right. Her name is Rachel. Rachel is from Maryland. That's what's kind of fun about TU. You got a host of people from all over the place. So Rachel's from Maryland, and Rachel came in as some sort of liberal major that I didn't really understand. And she's so intelligent. She was there for almost a full ride scholarship at University of Tulsa. And Rachel had 0 spiritual background. She'd never been to church. She didn't really know who Jesus was. She knew his name. She'd heard it in movies. But she was like, she came here and she said, Megan, oh my gosh, I have to tell you. She didn't know who she was talking to. Everybody talks about Jesus here. I was like, really? And then she's like, yes. I mean, everyone's asking me, do you want to go to church? Do you want to go to church? And I'm like, no. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And just going on. And I was like, well, like, who do you think Jesus is? Again, Rachel's not willing to step into a church. However, God has put us here together in the CAF for a reason. And so I'm asking Rachel, hey, like, well, what do you know about Jesus? And she was like, well, I don't know. He's some famous guy, told people a lot of stuff. Is he like Gandhi? I'm like, no, not quite. So I follow up with Rachel and said, hey, like, I actually have a passage of scripture. Can I write it down for you? I think it'll help explain why people are just so jazzed about Jesus. And she was like, all right, that might help. If I'm going to be here for 4 years, I might as well figure it out. And so I go through that passage in Romans 6:23 that Molly shared with me, and Rachel is sitting there, and she's like, Megan. I was like, yes. How has no one ever told me this? And I said, I don't know, Rachel. And she's saying, so you're telling me that Jesus is the only way to live eternally, not in like torment. I was like, well, yeah, pretty much. And she's like, well, that's kind of really sad that no one has been willing to tell me this. I'm 18 years old and this seems to be pretty important, huh? I was like, I think so. So Rachel, being this intelligent girl, has lots of questions. She starts reading the Bible like crazy. She's just like, this is a big deal. So she starts reading, starts in Matthew and just keeps going. She gets to John, and she's like, Megan, I have a million questions. And I'm like, all right, let's take the next 4 hours. And so we sit down, we start talking, and she's like, I just don't know if I can believe this. This just seems kind of crazy. I just never heard this before. And I'm like, all right, Rachel, hey, can I pray for you that God would help you understand? She's like, okay, fine, I guess you do that. So I prayed with Rachel and invited her to start getting involved in a dorm Bible study that I was leading. And she starts coming, she starts having a lot of questions, and really the entire Bible study was the purpose of me to share the gospel with a large group of people over the course of several weeks. So the third week in, we start to talk about Jesus. And she goes, oh, yeah, by the way, I made Jesus the Lord of my life. And I was like, what? And so she's like, oh, yeah, the other night I was thinking about what we talked about, and I decided that if Jesus was God and he crucified himself so he could live his life with me, I should crucify myself so I could be with him. And I was like, girl, you just said a lot of things a lot of people can't say. And so anyway, so Rachel, her life is forever changed because of that moment we had in the CAF, because Molly shared the gospel with me at the beginning of my freshman year. Going down from that, the 4 girls beneath them are girls that in my job I like to call my establishing girls. So these are girls that either came into college as believers and are wanting to grow, or the girls that in past years that I've led to Christ that I'm currently establishing in their walks with God, getting them consistent, getting them in the Word on a daily basis, helping them to pray, all these things, just kind of those basic things that we're told our whole lives, hey, you should pray, hey, you should read the Bible, hey, you should tell people when you're sinning, but they never tell you how, you know? It's hard because the people don't tell you how, they tell you why, so you have this burning conviction, but it's like, well, I don't know where to start. And so that's really where I've come in, is I've started telling these girls how and doing it with them. Up from there to the top, the two girls, so Amy and Margaret, those are my girls who I like to call my equipping girls. And these are girls who I've led to Christ, got to establish them in their faith and these basic things, and are now getting to equip them to turn around and do the same thing with other people. They're a sophomore and a junior in college, and so they're getting to start leading Bible studies instead of me leading the Bible studies in their sorority, and kind of passing that on and kind of shepherding them. Then on from that, the single girl right there is Olivia. Olivia is the very first girl that I led to Christ while I was in college, or just in life, this first girl. And Olivia is going to be going into the world as an advertising major. She's just the best salesman. She could sit here and sell you all on your own shirt to buy it again. And so she's just amazing, and it just comes so in handy. She's so able to relate with people and share the gospel with people and really help them see why you can't pass this up. So it's a wonderful thing for Olivia to have. But so Olivia has been in my life for the past 4 years, led her to Christ my sophomore year, and then since then I've been leading her. And so Olivia will be going into the world, and this year I'm exporting her. That's the title above her name. I want to export her into the world so that she can know that she has the tools that she needs to leave campus, leave this safe zone, leave this Acts 2:42 mentality of all these believers together, and be alone in the world and still be able to maintain this basic things in her life and continue to make disciples that she has in college. So that's kind of the 4 areas of my life with my job. You can go on. So you keep hearing us talk about Colorado, and you're like, you've talked about Tulsa this entire time. I think they're confused. We're not confused. I have been at Tulsa for the last year. However, as I think I said this once before, that Tulsa, as a campus of 3,000 students, sounds like a lot. It's really not. It's not a lot of people. And so whenever I was a freshman, our staff people were Molly, Jason, and one other girl. So 3 staff people for 3,000 people. And it sounds crazy, but it's actually like a good amount of staff people, because we have so many students that are involved with us that we're really able to spread out and touch a lot of the campus. But as from my freshman year to my senior year, a lot of people came to Christ, our lives multiplied, and we decided to come on staff. So this year we have 9 people on our staff team at the University of Tulsa. Praise God. That's an amazing thing that lots of people have wanted to give their lives to this. However, it's kind of overwhelming at Tulsa to have 9 staff people. It's a good thing, but it's kind of overwhelming. So because of that, if you can see this map here at the bottom, it's kind of hard to see. All of the little colored dots that you see on that map are the future campuses that we want to see student mobilization on. And right now we're on 13 campuses. By 2020, we hope to be on 50. So it's a big jump. However, God's multiplication is going to make that happen. And so these 6 people you see up there, myself, there's Molly, her little girl, Selah, her husband, Jason, that couple right there is the Coys, and the guy on the far right is a guy named Alex. He's a senior at the University of Tulsa right now. And so us 6 are going to be pulling off campus from TU. There's going to be 2 couples staying at TU, and we're going to be launching this new campus that we're getting to University of Colorado in Boulder. So we're just a part of that expansion with this hope to see STUMO on lots of campuses. So you can switch that slide. So why Colorado? I'll tell you, there's a lot of different campuses out of the 50 that we considered going to. But there was just something about Colorado that was sticking out to us. And feel very confident at this point in time after going to visit and really praying about it a lot. We're so excited. Some things that I can tell you all is why Colorado. Well, first of all, you can see the view. My gosh, that's the campus and these giant, beautiful mountains right behind it. Who doesn't want that to see every day at their job? So it's just a really exciting place to be. But also, 28,000 students. It's a large jump from TU. So it's almost a 10 times jump for me. I got shin splints whenever I walked the campus, whenever I went. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to have to get a bicycle. But truly, I'm just so excited because out of those 28,000 students, 97% of them claim to have no religion. I'll say that another way. 3% of them claim to be Christian. Remember, I grew up with that same claim my entire life. So to me, out of the 3%, I'm like, who of you really truly knows the Lord? Who of you has said, this is not just a label for me, but I have trusted my life in you, and you are not just my side partner, but you are my leader. So that's my great excitement, is to see that Jesus didn't came to heal the healthy, but to save the lost, to heal the sick. And I'm going to the lost. This is a very dark place. It's a top 3 party school. So what that means is I went to visit the campus, and surrounding the edges of the campus, there's about 20 different bars. Weed, pot, whatever you want to call it, is legal there. It's a drug. It's a very much so legal. It makes people very unstable, and it's just very common for people to be around. And I went into my sorority house, Chi Omega, at University of Colorado. Just walked in, walked into see the girls, and really God instantly gave me favor. It was amazing. I went in and I met the president and the vice president. It's the first 2 people I saw. It's like, well, hello. And so they go, oh, do you want a tour of the house? Yes, I do. And so they toured me of this gorgeous house. They've got 80 girls per pledge class, so much bigger. I had 13 girls in my pledge class, so it's just a very big difference. And so needless to say, I met a girl named Maggie, and Maggie I was asking her, hey, where are you from? She said, I'm from Georgia. I said, okay, sweet Southern girl, awesome. She's like, yeah, I'm from Georgia. I was like, Maggie, like what, what's your life here at CU like, all these kinds of things. She's like, well, I have to tell you, you're probably seeing me in my prime. I'm kind of hungover. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was a Tuesday, and I'm like, oh, this is different. And so Maggie was telling me, she's telling me about her boyfriend, that they've both kind of been cheating on each other at the same time, but they're just staying together, and she's, been going to the bars every night, and she's failing most of her classes, and all these things. And I'm like, Maggie, is this the life you want? And she's like, well, it's just kind of what people do here. We just kind of pull it together at the end of the semester and breeze through. And I was like, wow, that's kind of sad. So I started talking to Maggie, and we're just having a good old time. And I asked Maggie, I was like, hey, out of curiosity, what is the spiritual climate here at Boulder? Like, is it something people talk about, your spiritual lives and things like that? And Maggie, this girl from Georgia, she's still from the South, she kind of looks, gets real close to me and says, well, your name's Megan, right? And I was like, yes. She said, well, Megan, if I'm honest, I know I have questions, and I know a lot of my friends do, but there's just no one here to ask. My heart broke because Maggie, this girl who said that she's from Georgia, but she just never really went to church. She came to Colorado because it was a fun place, and it had her major. And she has no stability in her life, and she's seeking fulfillment everywhere else, and really trying to understand what is my purpose in life, just has no one to ask. So I said, Maggie, I would love to answer any questions you have, please. So needless to say, I got Maggie's number, And I'm excited to get to go back to Colorado and follow up with Maggie and be in her life. But that's just a very small portion of the things that we saw while we were there. Another one of my coworkers went and visited the Pi Phi house. It's another sorority. And we met, the first person we walked in the door and met was the president. This is not normal. They don't have to stand at the front of the door. It's not their job. But so we walk in, and she's a sophomore president. The entire Pi Phi house is from California. They have 2 girls not from California, okay? Out of 350, you can tell they have a bias. But it's very much a large part of the campus is from California, just very liberal. So we talk to this girl named Ashley, she's the president, and we tell them, hey, yeah, we're actually moving here in a year, and we're going to be coming here with an organization called Student Mobilization. We help students develop in character, leadership, and help any interest they have in their spiritual life. Of course, we can't lead with, hey, we're a campus ministry. You know, we got to be a Greek to the Greek, Jew to the Jew. But so we're telling them, and Ashley just goes, she's like, oh my gosh, how long are you going to be here? And we're like, well, we're actually leaving tomorrow. And she's like, oh, darn it, we're having an all-house meeting tonight. I would have loved for you to come and, you know, share something about how we can be better leaders. And we're just like, what? Really? And so it's just amazing because these girls, I asked Ashley, I was like, I'll be honest, like, we haven't known you for very long. Do you normally have people come speak? And she was like, well, no, I just feel like I could trust you. That is kind of weird. I've known you for 20 minutes, but I don't know. You just kind of seem like trustworthy people. You seem like you know what you're doing. And I was like, well, this is from the Lord. And so, needless to say, I was blown away because I really did see how lost the University of Colorado is, but I saw how much hope there is. I saw how much need there is, how much hurt there is, and how many open doors we have. I literally walked in, you know, to an open door. And so I'm just so excited. So really, why am I here? Why am I telling this to you all? And so you can go to the next slide. As I've said, part of my job is really forming a team of people who would like to support me in prayer and finances. And so with my job, I work full-time, 70 hours a week, completely off of those who are saying, hey, I want to send you, Megan, to Colorado. I want to support you on a monthly basis. I want to say, hey, I believe in what you're doing. And really where this comes from is this verse. And how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone to preach it to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? This is one of my favorite passages in Romans. Paul is basically saying that as a body of believers, we're meant to play a part. We're meant to play all these different parts. And so I want to play that part with you all of the person who's going, who's being sent, who's preaching to these people who say, I have questions, but no one here to ask. However, I'm just so honored. I called Sam and I was like, I'm basically looking for people as I'm going to Colorado to join my support team to send me to Colorado. Tulsa, as you can expect, is a little bit of a different cost than living in Colorado, and so that's why I'm raising more support to be able to be there. To give you all a time frame, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. 2 weeks to move to Colorado, assuming that I'm where I need to be with support. You can change the next slide. So my current goal, what I need left, is $1,500 a month of giving. And so I have typically, whenever I've been able to give people the opportunity to join my team, to really send me and to be a part of impacting the University of Colorado, I love people to join my monthly team. Here's why. I love people to be on a monthly basis knowing I am helping see Colorado reached with the gospel. I love people to be reminded that I'm helping people see the gospel because I've sent Megan to see you. And a lot of times I'll ask people to come on for $100, $200, $300 a month. However, my charge to you all as you here in Warner obviously are not in Colorado, but as Sam said, you all can have this impact. You all can be able to touch the lives in Colorado by sending me there. And so I would love for each of you to consider as a family joining my team on a monthly basis for $50 to $100 a month, or really whatever God really gives you a push to do. I would love for each of you to be a part of this. Something that I'll tell you all is I was asked once, Megan, if I gave you a red button and said if you push this red button that you'd be fully funded, that off of me alone, you wouldn't have to raise any more support, you wouldn't need anybody else, would you push it? All of you were like, well, yeah. I sat there and I was like, okay, what does he want me to say? But really, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, now that I've thought about it, now that I've been on staff, now that I've been in a campus ministry where it's really hard for me as a 23-year-old to relate to a 17-year-old still and act like we're best friends, I really don't know if I'd push that button. I actually say I wouldn't. Here's why. I want to have not just stable finances. I want to have a team of people who are supporting me and backing me. And whenever I'm in Colorado and thinking, man, no one is getting this. Am I doing this right? Is it worth me being here? Because I'm not above knowing that I'll have some of those days. As passionate as I am as making disciples, I know there's going to be times when my flesh is like, this is tough. I should go back to Tulsa. And that's why I'm like, man, I need a team of people who are saying, Megan, I believe on a monthly basis that you can do this. I believe that you're there for a purpose. I believe that you can reach these people. I believe in you. Stay. If I didn't have that team of people, I don't know if I would have even made it this year. But because I did have that first team of people, I did. In those times, you can switch to the next slide. In those times, I was really, honestly, in tears. I'm a girl. I cry a lot. But I was in tears, and I was asking my supporters, hey, please pray for me. Pray that these girls in Cayo would understand the gospel. I'm seeing just a lot of kickback from these girls that are just not wanting a spiritual influence. And or please pray for these Tri-Deltas. Please pray for these dorm girls. Please pray for Rachel from Maryland, who's saying that she doesn't know if she can believe in this. And so because of those things, because of my supporters, because I was able to reach out to them and know that they are behind me and Christ is behind me, His Word is behind me, I was able to see amazing things happen this year, and we have a host of girls going to our program this summer at Kaleo. So basically what I want to commit to you all, first thing it says is to work diligently to touch the lives of people for Jesus Christ. Basically, what I'm telling you I'm doing, what I'm telling you my passion is, I'm really going to do. I really am going to put that priority in my life. That is going to be what I'm circled around. That is why I'm moving across the country to do this. So I want you all to be confident that this is what I'm saying is the truth. I want also to regularly let you all know how God is blessing our ministry. I do say our because you are a part of it. I want to let you all know, hey, Maggie, the girl in Cayo that I met last year, I met with her and she decided to follow Jesus as her Lord. Please pray for Maggie because she's facing this temptation from sin to keep getting in all this trouble with her boyfriend, keep going to the bars, all these things, and she's facing change and her friends don't like it. Please pray for Maggie as she is transformed by the renewing of her mind because of God. I want you all to know how we're doing in our ministry and what things are happening because this is our joy. Paul says it is our joy. I want you all to have that joy. I also want to hear from you guys. This is not just a one-sided thing. I want to hear from you guys how I can be praying for you all. I want to hear how the Duns, hey, how can I be praying for your family? How can I be praying for the church at Warner? How can I be praying for your mission trips, your nursery, your programs, your services? How can I be praying for you all? I say that because every month I take a day of prayer where I spend the day for 12 hours praying for my supporters. I really do pray for you all. That is something that we as a staff do. because we can't be there without you all, and we want to have a partnership with you. So that being said, I'd love to ask if any of you have any questions or anything like that. You're welcome to come ask me afterwards. Please, even if you're not interested in being contacted after this to join my monthly team, I'd love you to write down your email on that slip of paper, just so that way you can get my news updates, so that you too can be a part of hearing how Maggie's doing, how Ashley's doing, how the Kaios are doing. So I hope that this hasn't taken too much of your time, but thank you so much for letting me be here, and it's been a total joy. So thank you.
Wow, was that not worth it? I mean, the thought that hit me as I was listening to Megan is, how many of you would like to be that kind of person, to make that kind of impact, to be that kind of disciple? Think about it. If you're checking your watch right now, you're not that kind of person. You're not that kind of disciple. But God's called us to be that. I'm going to ask our usher team to come down again. You may have to get the plates from the foyer. If our usher team can go ahead and come on down, we need to pass the plate again to collect those slips. And any of you that want to give today to support Megan, all of that will be sent to student mobilization in her name.